Alright guys, so now we're finally going to talk about guard pointing with Charge Blade. And I know for some of you that guard pointing is pretty tough to do, or it's hard to pull off consistently. So I'm going to try to help you guys get a little better at doing guard points. So yeah, let's get started. So first off, there are a couple of ways to do guard points. So there are a lot of animations and during certain attacks with Charge Blade that will activate a guard point. So it's usually animations that end with a shield, that end or begin with a shield in front of you. Kind of like this attack right here. So at the very end of this combo, which is just triangle, triangle, and triangle, the end of that is a guard point. So if you get hit at the end of this combo, a guard point may activate. Okay. Also, when you're charging your shield or winding up to do a SAED, you press R2, and that will activate. That can activate a guard point at the very end of this animation. Okay, next up, the end of this animation with the slide, which is done by pressing circle after any attack, circle and holding a direction. The end of this animation also causes a guard point. It also depends on the frames. I'm not exactly sure how many frames of the animation activates the guard point, but I think typically probably right at the end of the animation, honestly, you can do that. So I guess if you're hitting a monster and you see them winding up for an attack, kind of like Dodo Gamma, you can just, swoop back and he'll charge at you, you'll get that guard point. And also the best way to do a guard point, or the most common way, is switching between axe mode and sword and shield mode. So when you're in sword and shield mode, you switch to axe mode. Okay, now that animation, the beginning of that animation, maybe somewhere in the beginning of the animation, when the shield is in front of you as you're morphing your weapon, that is a guard point. So we'll try it here. That activated the guard point. Now, also, when you're already in axe mode and you're switching to sword and shield mode, the end of that animation causes a guard point. That's a little harder to pull off here, but you can practice it. A good way to practice on this barrel is after you hit it, wait for the little spark. Wait for the flame to start sparking, and once it sparks, do your guard point. And it'll pretty much always work. At the end, just like that. So, those are most of the animations. There might be some I'm missing. I hope I'm not. But that's most of them. But I guess the important thing to get down is that this animation here is what you're going to be using to guard point the most. Now, once you get used to that, everything else will come naturally. You can practice with all the other guard pointing animations, but that will be the one you're definitely going to be using the most. Also, keep in mind that when you do a correct guard point, it can... Let's charge up your shield. So you want to charge up your shield when you're primarily doing guard points, because you get an extra 2 points in guard when you charge up your shield. So you can also mix this with the guard skill itself, and it'll still add on. It'll stack on top of it. And the more guard you have, the less recoil damage you'll take. Or not recoil, well, recoil you'll take. And it'll be easier for you to counter. So like this. Straight into an SAED. So there are a number of movements you can do after you do a guard point. So even after you do a regular attack, you can side hop. You can step back, roll back, you can roll forward. And even after you do a little side step, you can also follow up with that by pressing triangle. And this could be an infinite. It could be a pretty good way to charge up your files if you're evading and attacking at the same time. It's really good if you're using evasion. It's like super good. So with Iceborne, we have the new Savage Axe mode, or I think it's also called Power Axe. I forget. But this mode is done by pressing L2 when you press triangle and circle to get ready for a wind up. Now what this does when you have files, let's charge up real quick. Okay, now this does a lot of damage. The damage multiplier goes up a ton. I don't know exactly how much yet, but the spinning blade makes the damage multiplier increase a lot. So you're getting a lot of DPS like this and a ton of damage. And it constantly eats up your files too, unless you just do a burst. Actually, yeah, even if you do a regular burst, it won't eat up all your files. But if you do an SAED, obviously, it always eats up all your files. So that you get the wind up beginning animation of Savage Axe mode right here is a guard point. That moment when your shield is popped out in front of you can activate a guard point. Now it's kind of tough to do that on this barrel, but here's the way I do it. Let's see if we get this on the first try. There we go. Perfect. See, that's a guard point there. And if you really get good at this, you can practice being super aggressive this way. Because you can essentially guard point in the middle of your SAED windup. Practice with it to see just how far you can go before doing it. It's pretty good. And remember that there are a number of counters you can do after a guard point, so keep that in mind. So if you see a monster is about to roar and you're charging up for the SAED, you go straight into Savage Axe mode and you counter it after the guard point with whatever you want. You know, could be a SAED, could be anything. Anything that's possible after doing a counter. So a very important note, when you start getting a little better with doing your guard points, eventually you can start being aggressive and guard pointing as well. So I recommend when you first start out that you maybe focus on, you know, just guard pointing from neutral position and waiting for a monster to attack and practice that guard point. But after many attack animations, you can go straight into a guard point. So basically, if it's an attack animation that you can morph into axe mode with after attacking, then you can essentially guard point. So that means you can be slugging on a monster and you can see them winding up for something. You can either finish the combo and get that guard point at the end of this, or in the middle of one of these two attacks. These two slashes, switch into axe mode, and get that guard point. I'll try to get some footage in here of stuff like that so that it's not as confusing as it sounds. Hey guys, so thank you for checking out the video, and I know a few people on my page have been asking me to make a video for guard points, so I hope it helps. And if anyone's watching who knows more on this than I do, or see that I missed something, feel free to comment on that and let other people know. And just spread the stuff around. And yeah, you don't need to worry about subscribing to this YouTube channel. I'm primarily not a YouTuber, so I just put this stuff on here just so people can come watch VODs. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and take care, guys.